What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. He's Michael Darcy of KC Sports Report, and the Chiefs were just linked to a key free agent. We'll be talking about all that and more right after this. Gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back into another Kansas City Chiefs related video here on the Show Me Football YouTube show. Before we get into everything, I do kindly ask you all to please like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Make sure you go ahead and hit that notification bell as well for future Chiefs content from me. Without further ado, let's get into it. So as you guys can see, I am joined once again by my good friend Michael Darcy. It's been a minute, but there's a lot going on right now with free agency right around the corner, Michael. And we got this tidbit last night from Pete Sweeney of the Kansas City Star. He reports that ahead of Combine Week, I'm hearing there's legitimate interest from Travis Etienne to come to KC. Etienne's due to become an unrestricted free agent next month, and the Chiefs need a running back. We'll see, he says. So, Michael, we're going to get all your thoughts on this, but real quick, I'll just throw this in before I ask you. It's interesting that we're hearing of a name, a specific name being linked to the Chiefs already right before the Combine. I remind people every year that the Combine, it's not just about the draft prospects, but this is a place where agents and GMs get together, and this is where a lot of free agency deals are born, and they'll go up to agents and say, hey, what does your guy think about Kansas City? What would a contract potentially look like? How much is your guy looking for? That's where a lot of these conversations start. So I would anticipate a lot more news over the next week or two, before the Combine, during the Combine, maybe some Trent McDuffie talk. There's all sorts of stuff going on, but we're going to talk about the running back free agent, Travis Etienne, Michael. So first things first, what would be your reaction if Travis Etienne is the move for the Chiefs at the running back position?
I'd be ecstatic. And the reason being that I actually think that he is the best player on the market that fits the Chiefs' skill set and what they want to do on offense. He can run the ball. He's got that explosiveness. And he's also incredible catching the ball as a receiver. And Jacksonville used him a lot like that, his rookie season and last year, when there was a little bit of a dip in production in the middle years of his rookie contract, but I think he had some injuries and he was also just not utilized properly. But he's actually, in my opinion, the best running back on the market for the Chiefs. He's my number one running back, and it's because when I look at the cost that you're going to sign Etienne for, his spot track value is at like $6.8 million. He's probably going to go for a few $1,000,000 more, anywhere from 7 to 10. But the Chiefs can play in that market. They can't be in the Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, $15 million plus a year market. And I think with all the other holes that they need to fill, signing signing Travis Etienne to a 2 or 3 year deal for $8-9 million a year, that's a fantastic deal. That's value. And I just love his skill set and what he could bring to the Chiefs.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I'm really glad that you brought up kind of the value part of this, especially because I don't think Travis Etienne is necessarily at the top of my list. I think I would definitely put Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall ahead of him as players. That said, I'd be kind of shocked if Kenneth Walker didn't return to Seattle. And I think Breece Hall might be a little bit too expensive for the Chiefs' liking, although I would personally put Breece Hall above Travis Etienne on my free agent board. I think Breece Hall is just a little bit more explosive, and I think you could see a lot more out of him because he was on the Jets, and we know how much of a hot mess that the Jets were. Whereas Travis Etienne, he had a good year this past year, thankfully, because Liam Cohen, their head coach, came in and just really, changed the culture there in Jacksonville in year one. And you kind of mentioned that, the middle years of Travis Etienne's career, his rookie contract, his production kind of dipped. But then again, Liam Cohen came in and he figured out how to use Travis Etienne. You see his stats from ESPN, 260 carries last year for over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns, 4.3 yards per carry, you'll absolutely take that if you're the Kansas City Chiefs after what they've had at the running back position over the last few years. I think Travis Etienne provides juice. He's someone that can break off long runs. Like you mentioned, Michael, he's a good scheme fit because he can catch passes out of the backfield, and that's something that they've lacked even with Pacheco. Even when he was good and healthy, he was never really a receiver out of the backfield the same way that Travis Etienne is. And going back to the value thing one more time, I do think Travis Etienne would be the best value if you're going to go the free agent route at the running back position, somewhere in that kind of $6 to $10 million range. It's interesting you bring that up because right before we started recording, Javonte Williams of the Dallas Cowboys, the running back who was slated to be a free agent, kind of a similar profile of Travis Etienne, he just signed an extension, 3 years, $24 million, I believe it was, with $16 million guaranteed. If you could get Travis Etienne for maybe a little bit less than that, I think that would be a great deal.
Oh, yeah. So Javonte Williams is staying in Dallas?
Yep. So he's off the board now.
Okay. But honestly, that's, good for the Chiefs because I don't know if they would have been in on that market and not because of the cost. I just don't. I mean, that was one really good year of Javonte Williams where he was
right.
Ass in Denver. But I mean, Travis Etienne is a guy that I do think fits the Chiefs scheme. The cost efficiency of signing him, I think it just makes too much sense. And something that I mentioned, earlier is that the Chiefs need to throw resources at the running back position in free agency and also in the draft. But if they go out there and they sign Travis Etienne to a 2 or 3 year contract, they're not drafting Jeremiah Love at 9. And I think that should be the way that they go, because with how running back is valued, you need to take, when we talk about positional value, an edge rusher, maybe a wide receiver, or at least an edge rusher or someone like a defensive lineman that are going to be expensive in free agency. You can sign a running back and you can draft one later to fit that position. But if they sign Etienne, they're not drafting Love at 9.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you if you hadn't brought it up, is, kind of what would be your draft approach if, Etienne ends up being the move?
I think it's got to be going for an edge rusher at 9. Edge rusher or wide receiver, and wide receiver is only a conversation because Rashee Rice is just a hazard. You can't trust Rashee Rice is going to be out there week 1. He could get suspended again. So wide receiver is a bigger need. Edge rusher is the biggest need on this team outside of running back. But honestly, with how much, how many holes they have on this roster, if you draft a safety because you don't think you're going to bring back Brian Cook, if you got Downs at 9, it might not be the flashy pick, but, the Chiefs are going to have a lot of holes in the secondary with Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie potentially getting traded. You can't really go wrong with the secondary, an edge rusher. I mean, hell, a right tackle if there's, one that falls and you feel like he's the best player available. The Chiefs are not really in a position where anybody they pick is going to be a bad pick as long as they get the right player at that position.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. There's a lot of different directions that they can go. It's going to depend on how the board falls, obviously. I would kind of like to see, if, again, assuming this Travis Etienne signing happens, let's just say, I think defensive line kind of has to be the play there. If those guys aren't available, if Bain or Bailey aren't really available, then I'd probably be looking at Caleb Downs. I guess you could still entertain Jeremiah Love if he's there and it's like those defensive line guys aren't really available, just because he is one of the blue chip guys in this draft class. And man, I mean, you want to talk about giving Patrick Mahomes weapons, that would be quite the stable in the backfield, especially because Travis Etienne, he's a smaller running back, and there might be some injury concerns there. That was actually going to be my next question for you. Are there any potential concerns that you have with Travis Etienne kind of being the guy if he's the target?
I think I'm a little concerned that the Chiefs would view him as their bell cow, where I don't really think the bell cow position at running back necessarily exists in the NFL. And if it does, it's the outlier. It's the exception to the rule. If you look at all of these other teams, they've got multiple backs that are good and solid that they can turn to. And that's why I think they need to sign one in free agency and also spend, maybe not a top 100 pick, but, a third or a fourth rounder. I guess the third rounder would be a top 100 pick, but go out and get a running back because they do not. Right now, the only running back they have on their roster is Brashard Smith. And they showed you last year with how they used him that they don't think he's a running back, or else he would have played a lot more earlier on. So go out and spend a draft resource on a running back and sign one in free agency. That has to be the way that they, evaluate that position this offseason.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point because I can't tell you how many Chiefs games last year I was watching, non-Chiefs games, excuse me. And I say, that team has like 2 or 3 guys that they're comfortable handing the ball off to, and the Chiefs don't even have one that like makes a difference. And I was just jealous of every single other NFL team for that reason. So I definitely think you have to make multiple moves at running back. I think draft pick is probably in play. I wouldn't be surprised because you mentioned Brashard Smith. They don't really give him the ball as a running back. I wouldn't be surprised this offseason, especially if, they can't bring back Tyquan Thornton and Rashee Rice's deal becomes bigger, that they don't just say, you know what, Brashard Smith is a wide receiver, and that's kind of where we're moving him to. I wouldn't be surprised to kind of see them just like embrace the fact that he is a wide receiver more so than a running back if they're not going to give him any carries. But no, I would like Travis Etienne, though. He's definitely, I think we have to remember where we came from when it comes to the running back position. I mean, he'd be a massive upgrade over what they had. And one more point that I want to make, and then, I'll get your thoughts and we can kind of wrap this up. But I think it's important to remember that because the Chiefs running backs have been very bad and they were probably the worst running back room in the league last year, doesn't mean you need to go out and spend the most money, but you need to invest a little bit more, and it just needs to be better than what you had. Their running game just needs to be a threat to keep defenses on their toes, to keep the defense honest, and they just haven't had that the last few years. And I think, people lose sight of that a little bit. They say, oh, no, the Chiefs don't need to spend big on a running back. Well, I mean, even if they did, I wouldn't hate it. But, I mean, yeah, they don't need to spend the most money out of anyone on a running back this free agency period, but they need to make the running back room respectable again, because that is going to help out the passing game. And I was saying that all last year. The best way to help out Patrick Mahomes in the passing game is to get a running back, as crazy as that sounds, especially one like Travis Etienne, who is a receiver out of the backfield more so than what they've had, of course.
100%. And something also of note is that the Chiefs last offseason signed Elijah Mitchell for $2.5 million, and other backs got signed for far less and played and were more productive. I believe Javonte Williams was making half of that, and he just got extended. So the Chiefs put resources in that position last year, via signing Kareem Hunt and bringing in Elijah Mitchell, and they just didn't put it. Well, they didn't put enough, but they also didn't give the money to the right guys. So as much as they need to invest in the running back position, whether it's in the draft and free agency, you got to make a good investment. You got to get the right guy. You can't pay Travis Etienne $7 million to, not that he would ride the bench, but you got to get usage out of him. You need someone to eat up targets, eat up carries, and, giving that money to Elijah Mitchell last year really hurt them because, that was a lot of money guaranteed that was eating up into someone that wasn't even active on game day.
That's an amount of money that you could theoretically use to go out and get another free agent running back in addition to ETN to kind of be, his number 2. I would also, and I'll throw this in real quick, I would like to see them bring back Kareem Hunt. I know he's older. I know he's not the fix to the Chiefs running back position, but he still helps this team. And let's remember, Kareem Hunt in short yardage was a more successful offensive play than the tush push last year. I still think there's a place for him on this team. But you definitely want to save him for kind of those situations instead of being a guy that gets 15 to 20 carries, on a given night. If you sign Travis Etienne, you could use a little bit more of that leftover money. If you're not going to sign a Breece Hall or, the $2 million we talked about they used to get Elijah Mitchell last year, you use that to go and get, a solid backup. And then, looking at the draft again, you could kind of focus your draft resources in other places because as you've mentioned, Michael, and I agree, the Chiefs have a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah. And, they need to go out in free agency and get this team as ready to play football before the draft as possible. But there are so many needs that, you can't F around. You got to actually go out there and fill those because there are too many holes where you can't just take chances. You actually have to find the solution. And, you made a great point. Like $2.5 million, that's, I don't know if Tyler Algier would go for that little, but that's, maybe Kenneth Gainwell from the Steelers, who's a free agent. Like, you can get that kind of guy for that kind of contract. And that's a needle mover, over the long term. But I like the idea of Kareem Hunt coming back, but also if they decide, we're going with a youth movement. We're not having Kareem Hunt. Bye-bye Juju Smith-Schuster. No Derek Nottie. No Mike Pennell. I would understand and like that process because at least they're trying to get younger.
At least it would be change, which they've showed you in the past. They don't like change. So,
yeah.
No, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there, though, guys. Those are our thoughts on this potential free agent addition. Definitely let us know your thoughts down below on if the Kansas City Chiefs were to sign Travis Etienne. All that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this one more time. Check out my work on showmefootball.com. Follow the Twitter at showmefb. And then before we sign off, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. Go check out the website, kcsportsreport.com, and listen to me on the night shift Wednesday night from 7 to 9 on Sports Radio 810.
There you guys have it. All that will be down in the description below. As always, that's all we got for this one. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs.